point, part of the point you're making, and in the list that you just gave, is that you think software may be the last to see the great benefit, but when they do, watch out.
It is huge. Because remember, we don't have CapEx requirements, and we have massive productivity. Our average company, which we measure today, of the products they serve their customers, is over 625% ROI. There aren't any other businesses that have that sort of return on investment. And when you supercharge that with agentic software and artificial intelligence and Gen AI, the ROI will go up exponentially. The real question is, how do you ensure that you distribute this effectively to your consumers and your customers so they can take advantage of these tools as quickly as possible so that they are more competitive in the markets that they serve?
You're talking about traditionally what has been looked at or called the rule of 40, potentially becoming exponentially larger, a rule of 60. I'm trying to think of how our viewers should be thinking about this whole space and the growth that you foresee it having.
Sure. To give you just an example, every level in the P&L statement will have some impact. AI will have some impact on it. If we just take code generation, in the world of enterprise software, that makes up a pretty large chunk of our cost. And we actually I had a few of the folks who are running these big LLM systems that now actually have code assist tools that they've introduced into our markets and our environments, some of which we have very exclusive partnerships with, that can reduce the cost of code by 50, 60, 70% in short order. And so the productivity and the reduction of the cost of code creates a massive increase in the P&L. So that's how you can go from a rule of 40 to a rule of 60, rule of 70 in short order, utilizing an AI tool on just one aspect of the P&L statement.
I talked to you about how the space has corrected in terms of equity prices. You must look at the opportunity that comes through the dislocation.
Absolutely.
How so?
Well, part of for us is, we look in our flagship fund and which of the deals that we should take private in these environments that may be lagging in their adoption of the next generation of tools. One of the things we did very effectively in the last cycle when we were converting from on-prem to cloud was identify those businesses. The public markets punished those companies that didn't make that conversion fast enough. We were able to take advantage of that, buy companies, transform those businesses, and actually accelerate their growth and their profitability. There's going to be something similar occurring from companies that are now cloud native or on the cloud to agentic. And building an infrastructure to do that effectively at scale is part of our mission.
When you have valuations correct, theoretically they become more attractive for somebody like you for potential take private.
Right.
Correct? I mean, you've done, I think, a half a dozen since 2022.
Correct.
Where do we see that moving forward? I mean, what does the marketplace look like to you now? Is it getting to the point where you're starting to say, okay, we're going to have some real opportunities that we might not have had a few years ago because valuations were too high?
It is in that point today. As you say, Smartsheet was the latest one that we took private. We have our eye on 5 or 6 others that we think are going to be exceptional companies when they become agentic and when we can convert those businesses to be Gen AI enabled. And so you will see us continue to take deliberate, focused, and measured action in that regard in taking companies private in this environment.
I watched a talk that you gave at North Carolina AT&T where you described being the first M&A banker on the ground in San Francisco back in '97.
Right.
You were a mentee of Gene Sykes.
Right.
You called the best M&A banker who ever lived. My point is you saw the internet,
right,
if not at its most nascent stage, in its middle school years maybe.
Right.
So you have good perspective between then and now. How does this revolution compare to what you saw then on the ground?
Orders of magnitude greater. However, it's not going to come easy. You will actually have to embrace this technology and actively drive it throughout your organization. People are often resistant to change, reluctant to make change. This technology, as we've seen it across our portfolio, 100% of our companies now are using code generation. 100% have a product to market or under development, and 100% are using it for reduction of cost in the implementation of their actually operating their businesses. But it takes an evangelical type of a fervor to get people to adopt this technology. But once they see the power of it, you see an acceleration of the utilization of it. That's what's happening today. And it is orders of magnitude. That's 625% ROI, orders of magnitude more benefit to our customers.
Bain and Company wrote in its 2025 global PE report of you guys, quote, "It's safe to say that software specialist Vista Equity Partners has gone all in on generative AI. Firm leaders are already convinced AI represents a paradigm shift in innovation that will ultimately create a multi-trillion-dollar investment opportunity." That says very much this is very early innings in your mind.
It is very early innings, but you have to get there fast first. And I think that's an important part of what we're focused on.
So first matters. First mover matters.
Absolutely. In certain industries, this technology is so powerful in what it does. You have the ability to not only turbocharge your value creation for your customers, but it will actually give your customers the opportunity to be more effective in their markets. And so I believe the consumption dynamic, when people see the value of it, will be absolutely exponential in its draw.
Because we're trying to sit here and pick out the winners, and I almost thought that you were going to say there's going to be many winners. Yes, it's okay to be first now, but you don't necessarily have to be first to take a lot. And that there can be many, many winners.
There can be many winners, but there are going to be losers in this market. What's going to happen? Certain companies will become agentic. Certain companies will, become Gen AI enabled and their customers. Others will not have a right to exist because they will not have adopted and evolved properly and fast enough to take advantage of this technology, and their competitors will eat their market. So that is something to be very conscious of and focused on.